Let's stand and we're going to sing Give to Our God Immortal Praise. Try using the shaker to see how it goes. So if it adds something, we'll see. To our God immortal praise, mercy and truth are all his ways. Wonders of grace to God belong. Repeat his mercies in your song. The earth he spread the sky and fixed the starry lights on high. Wonders of grace to God belong. Repeat his mercies in your song. He the sun with morning light. He bids the moon direct the night. His mercies ever shall endure. When suns and moons shall shine no more. He sent his Son with power to save from guilt and darkness and the grave. Wonders of grace to God belong. Repeat his mercies in your song. This vast world he guides our feet and leads us to his heavenly seat. His mercies ever shall endure. When this world shall be no more, his mercies ever shall endure. When this world shall be no more. And then we're going to sing this song too. What is our hope in life and death? Christ alone, Christ alone. What is our only confidence? That our souls to him belong, who holds our days within his hand. What comes apart from his command, and what will keep us to the end? The love of Christ in which we stand. Oh, sing hallelujah, our hope springs eternal. Oh, sing hallelujah, now and ever we confess Christ our hope in life and death. What truth can calm the troubled soul? God is good, God is good. There is his grace and goodness known in our great Redeemer's blood. stands above the stormy trial, who sends the waves that bring us nigh unto the shore, the rock of pride. Oh, sing hallelujah, our hope springs eternal. Oh, sing hallelujah, now and ever we confess Christ our hope in life and death. Unto the grave, what will we sing? Christ he lives, Christ he lives. What reward will heaven bring? Everlasting life with him. Then we will rise to meet the Lord. Sin and death will be destroyed. We will feast in endless joy when Christ is ours forevermore. Oh, sing hallelujah, our hope springs eternal. Oh, sing hallelujah, now and ever we confess Christ our hope in life and death. Oh, sing hallelujah, our hope springs eternal. Oh, sing hallelujah, now and ever we confess Christ our hope in life and death. Now and ever we confess Christ our hope in life and death. Amen. Please be seated. Before we get into our lesson tonight, I want to talk a bit about our Bible study going forward. Nancy sent out an email on Monday or Tuesday, and just wanted to kind of talk about the plan, my plan going forward, starting in not next Wednesday, but so in 2 weeks, basically. So one of my real desires for everybody individually, then our church corporately, is that we would be people who prioritize the scriptures and are actively keeping our swords sharpened and doing our work in the Word and spending time with God's Word in our own life, in our own time. And so to that kind of goal, I want to try something. Who did not see or read that email that was sent out? Because I want to make sure we had some people didn't see it, read it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a Bible study on, I think it's Jonah, Amos, and I always forget the last one, three prophets. I got them written down. And we're going to study, there's 12 lessons, and then we're going to use a devotional Bible study book that was put out by Grace to You or Master Seminary, I forget which publication it was. And it's designed to be a Bible study you can do on your own. But what we're going to do is, so like for the first lesson, the idea would be that if you want to participate and gain from the study of these three minor prophets, you do the lesson one leading up to the first Bible study meeting where we're going to talk about that lesson. And there's study questions and there's kind of looking into the text and background stuff you'll learn in the Bible study book. And then coming on Wednesday, there'll be a lesson that's not a regurgitation of that, what you just worked on. It'll be in the same text, it'll be in the same scope of material, but a different emphasis for a lesson. And then we'll be able to discuss, have some time of interaction about application of both the homework and the lesson. So the idea is, if you don't get a book, you can come like we've been doing on Wednesdays and benefit from the Bible study we do on a Wednesday night. But my hope would be that if you want to learn or recover the art of studying the Bible, or just want to study the Bible on your own and gain more from the lessons we're doing, you can take part in this Bible study. I think the book is like $11. You can buy an ebook if that's what you like to do. You can buy a printed book for $11 and go along with the study. And my goal there, again, is that to give you an opportunity to say, okay, we're studying Joel, Amos, and anyway, the third one. It's I'm not going to look it up. It's going to drive me nuts. Anyway, but it's study those prophets, and then there's also a kind of like a timeline, a deadline, a goal to have your work done, and then you can have an outlet to discuss it. Because sometimes in studying, you want to study, but then there's who do I discuss it with? Because no one else is doing this in-depth study on whatever I'm studying. It's hard to maybe have that fellowship there. But also, if I don't have a time when there's going to be this time to talk about it, then there's no due date. It's harder to maybe encourage yourself to get it done. Did somebody look up the prophet? Hosea. Okay, all right, good. I should have thought that anyway. It was one of the top 13 in my mind, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so I don't even know if that's the right number, but anyway, so the goal is to give opportunities. I know that with me, I work good on like deadlines or objectives that have like goals to complete. Whether it's memorizing verses, whether it's reading a book for just like self-enrichment. It's not related to any kind of like sermon or study that I'm planning on doing, whatever. Goals help me. And then an outlet to be able to have someone to talk about that with or to discuss that with is always helpful. So that's my goal. Plus, right now there is not a men's study or a women's study going on. And everyone's always busy, so adding it, we could do one now, and busy lives you can always stack more on lives, and you're never maybe as busy as you think you are sometimes. Anyway, but ultimately, this is going to be in lieu of that, at least for a while. And then if guys want to get together and do a study, that can happen as well too. But this is a way to at least fill that void for personal Bible study, serious Bible study, that we can come together and have some discussions. And if it works, I hope it works, we can build upon it and expand on it as a midweek Bible study. So that's the plan. So the email has links to Amazon where you can buy an ebook on Kindle or the print book. I put Logos Bible Studies link in there because that's a Bible app that you can. It's a free app to use. You can buy, if you buy resources, you can actually be part of your library. So if you want to start building a library, you can do that. But you can do it on any platform, or whatever. But those would be the ideas. So the plan is to start with the introduction. So not even lesson 1 in 2 weeks. So it'll be after that. If you wanted to study along, you do lesson 1. Starting that Thursday to the next Wednesday. And I'll give more details on that timeline, but that's my plan. Any questions about that kind of big idea that I shared? Any thought, questions, or anything before we move on to our lesson for tonight? Stefan.
If somebody doesn't have the book, is there going to be we're going through X amount of chapters?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so what I'll do, so I probably will, I could have a general week 1 through 12. Here's week 1, the chapters or the sections we'll be looking at. And then also on the Wednesday night handouts for the week, it'll have the content or the general parameters there too. So, so there will be more, whatever information I can give you without violating copyright kinds of things I'll try to do. But yeah, the idea is I want to encourage involvement. And so so good question. I can give a general plan, and my hope is to take each lesson for 1 week per lesson to be able to keep it simple and straightforward. But I suppose if there's a whole lot of great stuff that everybody's like, we should stay in this chapter next week. Okay, we can figure that out and be organic about that, but we can have a plan for our lesson. So good question. Any other questions or anything else about that? Excellent. I love the enthusiasm. So questions and enthusiasm. No critiques or tomatoes. I don't want those. Right? Just kidding. But any other questions, comments, conundrums, snarks about this? All right. Very good. But always talk to me later if you have any questions about it, and we can look into it and help you out. So Psalm 37. The next 2 weeks leading up to that study, I'll be doing a couple different psalms, and this one we're not gonna teach through or try to have questions on the entirety of Psalm 37. It is a long psalm, but I want us to read the psalm a little bit here, and we can I want to give some, at least focus on a couple of sections here to talk through it that have some questions to discuss amongst ourselves. I think probably the best thing to do would be to have some volunteers to read. So can I have any adults who would volunteer to read, and I can kind of assign it as we go here. Who's willing to? Rachel's ready to read. Okay. Phil, Stephanie. Kara's ready to read. Nathan's ready to read. Okay. Anybody else? We probably need another, at least, maybe a couple more here. Peter, Megan, I love it. I love it. All right, let's see how far we get. So I would like to have, let's see here. Rachel, if you could read verses 1 through 6. Phil, if you could read verses 7 through 11. Stephanie, could you read 12 through 15? And then let's see here. Yeah, Kara, could you read 16 to 19? And then let's see here. Nathan, could you please read 20 to 22? Peter, would you read 23 to 26? And then Megan, would you read 27 to 34? And then I need one more volunteer to read verses 35 to 40. Marion, thank you. All right, so we could go ahead and we'll go ahead and read those and follow along. So Rachel, can you start us, and we'll follow along as you read.
Psalm 37. Fret not yourself because of evildoers, be not envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday.
Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who carries out wicked schemes. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret, it leads only to evil doing. For evildoers will be cut off, but those who wait for the Lord, they will inherit the land. Yet a little while, and the wicked man will be no more. And you will look carefully for his place, and he will not be there. But the humble will inherit the land, and will delight themselves in abundant prosperity.
The wicked schemes against the righteous and gnashes at him with his teeth. The Lord laughs at him, for he sees that his day is coming. The wicked have drawn the sword and bent their bow, to cast down the afflicted and the needy, to slay those who are upright in conduct. Their sword will enter their own hearts, and their bows will be broken.
Better is the little of the righteous than the abundance of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked will be broken, but the Lord sustains the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their inheritance will be forever. They will not be ashamed in the time of evil, and in the days of famine they will have plenty.
But the wicked will perish, and the enemies of the Lord will be like the glory of pastures. They vanish like smoke, they vanish away. The wicked borrows and does not pay back. The righteous is gracious and gives. Those blessed by him will inherit the land, while those cursed by him will be cut off.
The steps of a man are established by the Lord, and he delights in his way. When he falls, he will not be hurled headlong, because the Lord is the one who holds his hand. I have been young, and now I am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his descendants begging bread. All day long he is gracious and relents. His descendants are a blessing.
Depart from evil and do good, so you will abide forever. The Lord loves justice and does not receive his godly ones. They are preserved forever, but the descendants of the wicked will be forgotten. The righteous will inherit the land from fire forever. The mouth of the righteous utters wisdom, and his tongue speaks justice. The law of his God is in his heart. His steps do not stumble. The wicked spies upon the righteous and seeks to kill him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, or let him be condemned in his judgment. Wait for the Lord and keep his word, and he will exalt you and test the land. When the wicked are cut off, you will see them. I have seen a wicked, ruthless man spreading himself like a green meadow. But he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Though I sought him, he could not be found. Mark the blameless, and behold the upright, for there is a future for the man of peace. But transgressors shall be altogether destroyed. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. The salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their stronghold in the time of trouble. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them, because they take refuge in him.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your reading, everybody. I think it's an amazing psalm. There's a lot in there that I could talk about. I want to focus primarily on a couple of sections, but just before I do that, this is not going to be one that I'll focus on tonight. But I don't know if you were startled or caught off guard or maybe your eyebrow raised at verse 13 that God laughs at the wicked, for he sees their day is coming. That's an interesting, again, that is a unique, again, way of depicting the folly of the wicked. Just a noteworthy thing there. We'll come back to a couple other things, but I thought that was just one of those statements that sticks out a little bit. I want to really look at a couple of things. First of all, look at verse 25. And I think this is important. The psalm is David as an old man. Think about an older man sitting on his porch with his lemonade, maybe watching those kids going by, whatever. I've been young and now I'm old. This psalm was written from a position of aged wisdom, of a lot of lived experience. I think that's I'm going to come back to that a couple times in our application or questions. But I think it's an important thing to remember as we look through this psalm. It's also referred to, the psalm is also referred to as a proverbial psalm. It seems like some of the commentators talk about how it could fit in with the Proverbs pretty well. Now, just to kind of point that out a little bit, we'll be mainly in Psalm 37, but turn over to Proverbs chapter 24. Just see this here. Proverbs 24, verses 19 and 20. Now, I saw Evan raise his hand earlier, so I'm going to call on Evan. Once you get there, Evan, would you read Proverbs 24, verses 19 and 20 when you get there? Okay, sounds pretty familiar to what we just read. So this is obviously a proverb that was likely either based upon David's psalm or together. It's from the same basic pool of wisdom that God used and inspired in his word here. So it's an interesting picture there. There's also one other thing. Does anyone else, you probably didn't notice this unless you have a particular translation. But do you notice anything else that's special or unique about this psalm? Any ideas? And everybody's like, what in the world? So who here is reading from the Legacy Standard Bible? Anybody got the Legacy? Stephanie, you have the Legacy Standard Bible. Is there anything that stands out in your translation, the way that's laid out, that maybe is noteworthy? It's written as an alphabetical, A, B, C, through the alphabets. Just like Psalm 119 is, there's about 4 or 5 different of the Psalms that are laid out going through the alphabet. And so, I won't, even though we all know Hebrew, I'm not going to go through all the letters and the verses, but just trust me in that it's laid out between 1 and 3 verses. Stephen would check me on it to make sure I was making everything correct there. But anyway, it's an acrostic or an alphabet psalm. So it's an intentional meditation. And one of the things that the commentators have said, which I thought was interesting, because one of the overall themes in this psalm is that there is a purpose and a plan, and like for instance, God orders the steps of the righteous, and that there's an end that is good and blessed for the righteous, whereas the wicked will be cut off. In other words, it speaks to the ordered nature of all things. That the alphabetical way of writing contributes to that orderly idea of God's universe. So that's some interesting details there. So it's a psalm of aged wisdom from perspective of the aged. It's sometimes referred to as proverbial because of the way it's laid out, and also it's an alphabet. It's one of those acrostic psalms that is intentional about that layout. Well, let's look at the first 11 verses because this is really where the situation for the entire psalm is laid out. And we read, I think, all of the references I think, at least in the New American Standard, where the word fret appears in the Bible. Fretting is probably not a word that many of you use, and many of you maybe really haven't heard unless you talk to a grandparent, or that was one of my great-grandmother's words she used all the time, was fretting. Don't fret about it. So I think of my great-grandmother and then my grandma as well when I think about the idea of fretting. But the word, again, in most translations, the New American Standard, ESV, King James, NIV, all use the word fret. One fairly common translation, the Holman Christian Standard Bible, translates that word with be agitated, which I think, if you don't know what fretting means, that's a good idea, a good word. The Hebrew word is often it's used, I think, 90 some odd times, and it has to do with anger. So, for instance, 35 times in the Old Testament, it's referred to the burning anger of particularly, oftentimes it's God, or it's just anger in general, or a kindled anger. So it refers to this heightened or emphasizing anger, and 4 times it's used of fretting. The idea is, behind the word is to become hot in anger, or to have a kindled wrath. And if you think about building a fire, it's that which gets the fire going. It can either begin it, or it can be kind of this raging. It's a descriptor of the fire. So it's an idea of an excitedness of agitation. And I think here in the context, it's this an excited worrying, an excited worrying because of fear. So do not fret because of evildoers. Be not envious towards wrongdoers. I think the idea there is either anger on account of what they're doing, but I think fretting is the worrying because of what they might do. It's that excited emotion that's, related to, again, the same family as anger, I think. It's an interesting word. And then, again, verse 1, it's really some interesting language there. It says, be not envious toward wrongdoers, which maybe that was one of the things that maybe made your eyebrow raise as you're reading that, envious towards wrongdoers. That's an interesting thing to say. Envious simply means to make jealous, or to show jealousy, or to excite in jealousy. It's the idea of this, again, enlivening towards jealousy, envy. In the same idea, you got coveting. Those are those kinds of pictures there. So again, the warning in the very beginning that David is, through the Holy Spirit here, is giving: do not be excited in worry because of the evildoers, nor be excited to jealousy for something because of evildoers. And then he goes to right away give the reason. Again, I think this plays into the idea of the aged perspective here. For they will wither quickly like the grass. I think later on, I forget where it is. It might be in verse 20. I think it speaks of the glory of the pastures. You think about the glory, the beautiful, lovely green that in the fall, and then the winter turns brown all of a sudden and goes dormant. Because they will wither quickly like the grass and fade like the green herb. So that's kind of the setup. Again, the admonition is: don't worry, don't fret, nor be envious, jealous of the evildoers or wrongdoers. So whatever wrong response, don't do that, because their time is short. Then I like verses 3 to 5, because in verses 3 to 5 we have, I think, we have kind of the response of what the righteous are to do. Like verses 1 and 2 probably are the natural responses. At least verse 1 is the natural response to seeing wickedness, being terrified, being afraid, being anxious, or being like, hey, they got it good, or something, being envious of what they have. So that's kind of like a natural response to seeing things. Verses 3 to 5, we have the proactive or positive things of what the righteous are to do in the face of these things. And there's several words here. I would point out trust, delight, commitment, and trust. You could even throw in dwell in there, but I think that's more of an embellishment on the end of the first part of verse 3. But you have these positive things that the righteous are to do in the face of these evildoers. Trust, again, is the idea of a confident reliance. And notice in verse 3 to 5, trust is kind of the bookends of this section. Trusting in the Lord is this framework. If you want to think of again, in terms of a chiasm, like an A, B, C, C, B, A, kind of an organizational structure for a poem, you have trust being kind of both the beginning and the end point as it makes this arc around. It's not exactly an acrostic or a chiasm, but I think it's helpful to think of its progression and coming back to this trusting in the Lord. And I think when you look at this, trusting in the Lord and do good is again parallel to trusting in Him in verse 5, and He will do it. So you have again this kind of parallel statements, kind of bookending this response for the righteous. The idea is, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. The idea is that if we, in response to the stimuli of evildoers and wrongdoers, the response is to maintain confident trust, hope in the Lord, reliance upon the Lord, and live in obedience and conformity to Him, and He will do what needs to be done. Again, trust in the Lord and do good. Simply, that is contrasted to the person that they're looking at. The wrongdoers are doing evil. They're denoted by actions that are wicked. In verses 1, 8, 9, and even 27, these are the wicked. They are doing evil. The righteous are to depart from evil. They're to do what is good and to not do what the wrongdoers are making the habit of doing. But then he gets to maybe one of the more difficult to apply, or difficult to maybe wrap your minds around sometimes. Verse 4, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. The second part we can understand, that the God will give us the desires of our heart. That part I understand. But when we talk about delighting in the Lord, an appropriate question is, what does that look like? What does it look like to delight in the Lord? And I think a helpful way to think about that is to find satisfaction, to find fulfillment, to find, he'll talk about later, this ability to rest and relax, to be content in the Lord. So delighting in the Lord, to delight in something is to, as one resource says, delighting in the Lord means taking great pleasure in the Lord, where He becomes the absolute priority of our hearts, minds, and agendas. And I think it's important because we can talk about priorities and not talk about delighting. A priority or even a habit can be like a drudgery at times. Like you can have a priority to do empty the dishwasher right when you get up in the morning. You might not delight in that, but it is the thing you must do. Or put the laundry in the dryer right away in the morning, or whatever it is. That's just the thing that you do. You might not be because it's a priority, you might not delight in it. So I was trying to think of a good way to talk through the idea of having a priority that is not the same as delighting, going into delighting in it. What might that look like? So for instance, a striving for priority, meaning something you know you should want to do or want to be a priority in your life. That idea is like it's hard to even get it done, and it's even just a chore to begin to do that thing. That's where you have a priority that's not lived out. There's no delighting in that or joy in that, even though you know you want to get there. That's, I think, stage maybe one of priority making. Then after a while, you might get an established priority or like developed into a routine. So in other words, you get it done. It's out of habit, and you might find freedom in it because you just do it. You kind of almost do it reflexively. Because if when you get up in the morning, you get up and you do the things, before you go to bed at night, you do the things. It's the thing you do. It's the routine to make things right because of the priorities and the standards you have. Again, there may or may not be joy present in the action, but you do enjoy the fruits of having it done because then the dishes aren't piling up, the laundry's done, or whatever it might. There's benefits there. Again, this is maybe a bad analogy, but I think a delighted in priority, for instance, if you have the day off, if you're on vacation, you might not do those same normal things that you do every normal day. You might be like, I've got different things that I don't have to do those today. They're not bad to do. I don't mind doing them, but I'm not just going to go and freely kind of just going, I want to do it. I think delighted in priority is a thing that you would then, I have more time to do these things that I enjoy, that I've prioritized. So if you want to put it in the sense of Bible reading or prayer time or devotions, I know I need to want and should want to have a dedicated personal time of praying, Bible reading, studying. Oh, it's so hard. I just can't get it to work. Okay, well then after a while you have a fixed priority. Well, okay, I go to work by 6 or by 7, so if I get up 15 minutes early so I can leave, then I can actually have a little bit of time to read my Bible and I can plan to pray while I'm in the car as I'm going to work or whatever it might be. And you have that developed priority into a habit, and it is great. Then vacation comes and you're definitely not getting up to be at work at 7 or whatever it is, or you're not traveling in your car, so you might not do those things. Not that you're not benefited from them, you don't prioritize them, but it might not be that delighting in the time that you're spending with the Lord. So, but if it is, and you wake up on vacation, okay, I woke up at 10. I woke up at 10 or whatever it might be. Okay, 15 minutes. I can read my Bible this morning for 20 minutes. I got plenty of time. And instead of driving, I can walk around my yard or whatever. And you delight in those kinds of priorities. I mean, I think that's a difference. Again, imperfect analogy. But again, the idea of what it looks like to delight in the Lord is where you are. It is what you do when you're free to do what you want. When you're not even in the grind of regular, proper, good habits and motions. Again, so take that for what it is. As am I trying to kind of put some rough edges to grab onto these ideas of delighting in the Lord, as opposed to a good and proper prioritization of life in the hustle and bustle of normalcy. John Piper, I figured he had some good stuff to talk about delighting in the Lord. He's spent his life devoted to this idea of delighting and finding enjoyment in the Lord. He described it in the terms of delighting in someone that you admire. So that kind of, if you admire a friend or some elder person, or if you really have you admire, if you really admire some character trait about your spouse or a friend, you just enjoy being around them in their element. You have that admiration and that delighting in those things. Piper said this, "For me, Jonathan Edwards has been a huge help in this area. He's observed that the beauty of Christ, the excellencies of Christ that satisfy the human longing for ultimate excellence and ultimate beauty, and in them ultimate satisfaction, is seen most clearly when you observe the diverse excellencies or the surprising juxtaposition of seeming opposites in Christ." And he quotes Edwards and says this, "The person of Christ brings together infinite highness and infinite condescension, infinite justice and infinite grace, infinite glory and the lowest humility, infinite majesty and transcendent meekness, deepest reverence towards God and equality with God." And he goes on to talk about the amazing value or height of the character or the person of Christ that you can admire all these things because he manifests all of them to their great degree. So again, this idea of whether it's thinking about delighting as an admiration of just like awe-struck wonder, if it is this delighting as in the thing that like where I am delighting in the Lord and I get to spend more time with him, or I get to pray about this concern or give praise about this blessing. And it's that delighting in the Lord, I think, is an idea there. And then he says, commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him and he will do it. I think committing is the precursor to delighting. So if I was like in the acrostic, it'd be like, or not in the acrostic, in the chiasm. So if you're looking at verses 3 to 5, trust is the A, it's the first thing. Then you go right to the end, C, delighting, and then you go back to B, which is committing your way to the Lord, and then A is then trusting in him. So I mean, it's that idea of trusting, committing your way to him, and then delighting in him as you've lived in through those committed realities. Well, we don't have time to go through some of the other ones I want to look at because I have some questions for us here. So the verses under question A, we're not going to look at, but those are all the, I think all of the, or several of the places where we're told not to be envious of the wicked. So my question is, why does the scripture repeatedly warn us not to be envious of the wicked? Why do you think that? Why is there repeated admonitions to not be envious of the wicked? What's that? Okay, because we're drawn into their sin. Okay, good. Anybody else? Phil?
I think sometimes because it seems like they're getting away with it.
Yeah, they're getting away with it. They're somehow, they've hacked the system. Okay, all right. Anybody else? Stephanie?
While they're getting away with whatever they're getting away with, their life seems to be flourishing.
Yeah. I mean, you guys answered my follow-up. My thought was, my answer to this for myself would be, because people are prone to do that. We're prone to be envious of the wicked. And you're saying, why? Maybe because they've hacked the system or they're benefiting from it. Those things are attractive, like, I like what seems to be the benefits. Why do they have that and I don't? I think it's important to remember, to be reminded that we have to be careful not to envy, not that the wicked are doing the wrong things, but they're getting the stuff from doing the wrong things. And why am I sitting here spinning my wheels, it seems like sometimes? So I think it's important to be aware of that, or at least of that tendency that we can so easily fall into, that envious response to the wicked. I mean, fretting is also another thing we have to be careful with, and we'll talk about that. But I mean, this idea of envying, being jealous of the wicked, is something that I think we have to be soberly corrected out of a toleration of those ideas, of that response. So, letter B there, the psalm was written from the perspective of an old man. Verse 25 says, I have been young and now I'm old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken or his descendant begging bread. Why is this a helpful perspective when considering the present situation of the righteous and the wicked? So even right now, for us, whether it's for David talking to whomever he's talking to, or for us, why is the perspective that an old man would give important as we consider the present situation of both the afflicted righteous and the prosperous wicked? Why would that be helpful? Phil?
To give a long-term answer to the hope that you will be taken care of. You don't need to stoop to the evil ways because the righteous God will take care of.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
In a little examples in your own life where the Lord has been faithful time and again, and you've seen where the wicked are perhaps seeing justice?
That experience of the care for God's people, but also for the justice or the just deserts of the wicked, both in life, but also in, knowing history, knowing the Bible history. David knew, about the history up until this point from the times of the patriarchs and to him. So there's that for sure. I'm sure that the Israelites, when they're coming into the land, maybe envied the Canaanites and all the nice stuff they got to have and do. But then I remember history when God dealt with them in a particular way. I've not seen the righteous forsaken. I think the picture of the old timer, or from the perspective of the old timer, is that I've seen it in my life, but also when it comes to the picture of the flowering or the grass withering. I was just talking to somebody just this last week, a kid, and they said something about, this summer was just whatever. It was they had a wrong perspective about the summer. There was never any warm days or whatever else, and it was just a cool, so no good swimming days or whatever, or school year lasts just forever, and kids are just like, just forever. But as you get older, in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 80s, whatever it might be, how quickly do those calendar days go by? The days may still seem long, but the weeks and the months just go like that, and you can see that progression. And so you have a better grasp on the tenuous nature of the longevity of wickedness. I think there's a helpful perspective there in just wisdom of the aged from just going through the times of life. When I was in high school, I remember, for me, high school was a lot of fun. I enjoyed high school. It was a blast with all kinds of activities and friends and stuff. Was great. And at the end of high school, people are leaving. Some people were like, "Oh, life is over. It's never, this was so huge. It was great, and whatever." Which it wasn't over. But I mean, all that I knew at that time of the 18 years, and the last condensed 4 was a huge part of my life experience. Now, 4 years is not small, but 4 years of life experience is a lot smaller of a ratio than it was when I was 18. As that perspective helps to kind of put things in their proper place. So, verse 1 begins with, "Do not fret because of evildoers." So question letter C, the Lord instructs us not to fret because, according to verse 7, it only leads to evil doing. How does fretting, worrying about the wicked, how does fretting lead to evil doing? It's one thing to say fretting leads to evil doing. I have no idea what that means or how that works. So the question, how does you fretting about what's going on in the evil lead to evil doing? Phil?
Well, in your definition of fret, which I hadn't heard the one where it was anger, agitation, kindled wrath, hot with anger. I'd never heard those as fret. It was always just worry.
Well, let me play onto that. It was that kindling, that building up. So it wasn't just like that's a bad thing. It was that kindled kind of concern.
But hearing that and kind of thinking about that, if that is the beginning of that, it could easily lead to anger, and it says cease from anger.
Yeah.
Proceed wrath. Well, if you're going to down that path, it's going to easily lead to doing evil things yourself.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
I think if we're fretting, we're not going to be trusting in the Lord.
Yeah.
We're looking to ourselves or something else.
Yeah,
And that's
for sure. And I think you're just starting off on the wrong position. Whether you're you're essentially you're fearing the man, fearing the things of men, and not fearing the Lord. And so you're starting off on the wrong foot. And that's why I think, again, we'll see that verse 3 goes into trust in the Lord. It's that contrast. I think fretting leads to evil doing, because if we're concerned or engrossed in worrying about evil, we're not thinking about what is good, right, and true. We're not focused on Christ. We're not focused on what is true and good. Good. You guys had some good answers. I guess I didn't have that question there. Well, I want to ask this because Phil brought up the next verse: "Cease from anger, forsake wrath." Unless it is there and I missed it. But so if we're told in verse 8 to cease from anger and forsake wrath, and then do not fret, what does that imply about kind of the response that's going on at that time? That you are responding in anger and wrath. There's these wrong responses. So again, I think this whole building up of this admonition, we need to be reconciled to the reality that we oftentimes have less than righteous responses to fear or wrongdoers. How do I go, letter D, if I'm presently worrying about evildoers or envying them? How do I go from that to resting in the Lord? In other words, I know that resting in the Lord is what I need to do. I know the right answer is resting in the Lord. The question is, how do I accomplish that if I'm presently worrying or envying about the evildoers? How do I then, what does it look like for me to accomplish resting in the Lord? How do we go from that? Braden, you got an idea?
Reading the Bible.
Okay, reading the Bible, that can help for sure. Okay.
I think maybe specifically casting our cares on him, and I like in verse 7 where it says, "And wait patiently." So it's like trusting his timing to answer our concerns too.
Good. Anybody else?
I mean, it gives us the answers to earlier in 3 there, when it talks about if you dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness and delighting yourself in the Lord, those are leads you to it.
Yeah, I think the idea of resting is a picture of trust. Think of the child who rests kind of leaning on dad, leaning on mom, that kind of a thing, or just if there's trouble in the world, but you're sitting next to your spouse or sitting next to your parent, you can just, things will be okay. Whatever it might be. There's that when I'm confident that someone is going to be taking care of what's going on, I can just rest and relax. So I think it comes back to trusting in the Lord, which again, as Braden pointed out, it's important to know who our God is. We can trust in him, which is why we need to read the Bible. So you could use maybe the same idea, whether it's resting in the Lord or think about delighting in the Lord. Letter E, their final question. If I'm not presently delighting in the Lord, what can I do how can I change that so I can get to a place where I'm delighting in the Lord? And I mean, reading the Bible is going to definitely put your mind on Christ, but what are some practical things in addition to that we could do if I'm not delighting in the Lord as I ought to or at all? Maybe I don't know that I'm delighting in the Lord, like on a vacation day, thinking, praying, doing any kind of Christ-centered things would not be the first, second, third, fourth thing that I would do. It'd be the TV, the games. It'd be the running around outside. It might be other things, good or not good, whatever. But it wouldn't be things of the Lord. How do we get to that point of delighting in the Lord? Any thoughts?
Sometimes we need to decrease the worldly things we're enjoying sometimes to become actually giving us enjoyment and satisfaction.
Yeah.
And asking God to give us the affections that we should have and we long to have. And I guess also repenting when we're idolizing something that isn't Him.
So changing the ratio of what I'm putting in, asking the Lord to help me to have the right affections, and repenting where I'm standing on not solid ground on those things. Good. Anybody else? Stefan.
Because I was kind of thinking we might not even thinking about it, like, or thinking about it, like, that is heart should be and asking God to form with that. I think first realize
Yeah.
where it should be, and yes, going through things and realize it's not, how it the spirit working in me can change my heart and mind, desire that. It takes God changing my selfish heart to change my perspective. His.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think ultimately the where I would direct initially would be what you guys both said. One part of it anyway is ask the Lord, help me to desire and to delight in you. I think that's a big part of it, is asking the Lord to help to change my heart to delight in what is good and in Him. And to help me not to delight in the things that I should not delight in, as Rachel mentioned. And then to walk in faithfulness, to do good, to trust in the Lord and do good, to do the things, to live in the way in conformity to what He has commanded. All the while asking the Lord, help me to delight, to love, to rest in you. Good. Well, we're out of time. Went over a few minutes. Sorry about that. Let me close this in prayer. Lord God, thank you so much for today, for this time in study. Pray that it was a blessing to your people and that honored you. Be with us now as we have a time of fellowship.